So, my name is Richard, and I want to welcome you all to iLearn Review Live, and I want to talk about something that happened about 3 days ago. So, for you to understand this, something you need to understand is, we're all familiar with the phone company Verizon. We've all heard of Verizon before. I think an interesting thing is why Verizon is buying AOL and Yahoo. Do any of you know why Verizon is buying AOL and Yahoo?
Yeah, probably it expands their business and gives them more.
To compete with Facebook.
Yeah.
There's the only answer to why Verizon is purchasing AOL and Yahoo is to compete with Facebook, to compete with Google. Verizon as a company is going to be very soon. Do you know in the US, and it's probably true in the other countries as well, in the US, the biggest company for lobbying in the United States is who?
AT&T?
Comcast.
Oh, okay.
Comcast. There is a very, very interesting law that passed our Senate in the United States 4 days ago. Now you're saying you're from Canada, we know you're Canada, and you're UK. Why would this relate to you? Because once this passes in the US, it's going to pass all over, and it's actually already in the UK.
Okay.
So if you know in the UK that your providers can see everything you're accessing, they can see BT or whoever you have, 3, can see everything you're accessing. In Canada, they're starting to be able to see that. And that's been okay. That's been used for counterterrorism and different things like that. But they just removed something from law. I want to read the exact words. They disapproved a rule submitted by the FCC that was called Protecting the Privacy of Customers of Broadband and Other Telecommunication Services. What does that mean? Basically, there is a law that's being written off the books that allows Verizon to sell where you go on the internet to advertisers. So it allows them to sell where you go on the internet to advertisers, it allows them to sell it to anyone they feel like. Now this was blocked last year. The interesting thing about this law is not only have they repealed that, they've put something in place that says they can never make a law like that again, blocking it. Now what this really means is it means that your cell phone company is going to sell your browsing data, your location data to the highest bidder. If that makes sense. They're going to sell your browsing data, your location data, all of that to the highest bidder, and it doesn't matter what device you access it on. It doesn't matter who your email provider is or anything like that. But the most interesting thing about it is it says that the change paves the way for ISPs, internet service providers, that's your cell phone company, your cable company, all that, to sell your data to advertisers.
Even if you go incognito?
Even if you use a VPN, it's a little more difficult, but what's happening is these companies are buying up VPN companies left and right. So even if you go incognito, but a lot of us are not going to go incognito. When you want to search something on Google, and you want to Google search a restaurant, Google knows you searched that restaurant. Now Comcast or Verizon or Bell or Shaw or TELUS is going to know that as well. And what's interesting in the US is this law has been repealed that said they couldn't have access to that, and there have been protections that have been put in place. This is what this bill is going to do. Protections put in place that prevent it from being added again, which is very, 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 very dangerous. So it's very, very, very dangerous if you say, we've made this law so you can't add other laws. And I think it's really, really interesting. Again, it's called the Privacy of Customers, Broadband, and Other Telecommunication Services, which basically said that your phone or your TV or your internet provider is just a dumb pipe. Does that make sense? It's just a dumb pipe. But they've repealed this, and this has become a very interesting thing because it's going to change a lot. Now, to give it a little bit further, we're going to talk about this in Netflix and YouTube in a couple of days. But I think what's interesting is right now, you know that Comcast or your, who do you have? Bell, or you have BT, am I correct? Who's your internet provider at home? Virgin Media.
Yeah.
Those companies don't make any content right now. They sell other people's content. But what's going to happen when you have things like this is the unraveling of what's called net neutrality, meaning that all things are created equal. So content that Comcast owns is going to work on Comcast network fine. Stuff that Branson makes is going to work fine on there. But you know what's going to stop working well if these protections go into place? Netflix and YouTube and all of these other providers like that, to give you a little idea. But I think the most important thing you need to know about this is it's not a law yet. It is going to, we have 2 houses in the States. We have the Senate and we have the House of Representatives. And then it needs to be signed by the President. But it's very likely with a Republican majority Senate that it's going to pass. And out of the senators that passed it, those senators over the past 4 years were given $1.7 million from Comcast in campaign contributions.
What about opposition? Is there any financial opposition to that?
There's very little opposition to this. I mean, Google doesn't want it, Apple doesn't want it, Facebook doesn't want it. Those companies don't want it, but they're not the ones that are lobbying and doing all these different
They
things.
got the money to outlobby the other.
Of course they have the money, but the question is if it's a fight worth fighting.
That's true.
If it's a fight worth fighting, because here's the good news. All these cell phone providers will be gone very, very soon. We'll talk about that. I'll give you that logic another day. Trust me, I'm not going to let you leave the cruise without understanding that logic. We'll talk about that another day. But the idea is this is something that just came out, and it's going to overturn the internet privacy rules, and it's going to make things very, very difficult for you to keep that, for the providers to see what you're doing, and to not only see but to sell that information to a third party as well, which is very interesting. No, because they're not allowing you. This rule does not allow you to opt out of that data collection, which is crazy, but incredibly true. So it's that is a little idea on the internet privacy rules that are out there nowadays.
When does it come up before the?
It comes up before the House in a couple of days' time. They haven't put it on the docket just yet, but it comes up in a couple of days' time. That's it for today. Bye.